Use headphones for a better experience.
I never thought a simple view from my window could turn into something so horrifying. It started with a woman staring at me from across the street. But she wasn't just watching me. She knew things about me that no one else could, and she wanted me to pay for my mistakes. It began 3 weeks after I moved into my new apartment. It wasn't in the best neighborhood, but it was all I could afford. The building across the street was a rundown, abandoned complex, its windows broken and its walls tagged with graffiti. I didn't think much of it, figuring it was just another part of city life. But then I saw her. It was late, around 11 p.m., when I first noticed her standing in one of the windows of the abandoned building. She was just there, staring directly at me. She had long, dark hair and pale skin, and her face was shadowed, making it hard to see her expression. I figured she was a squatter or someone passing through, so I didn't pay much attention. But the way she stood perfectly still, never blinking, sent a shiver down my spine. Over the next few nights, she appeared again, always in the same window, always staring at me. It didn't matter if I turned off the lights in my apartment or moved to a different room, her gaze seemed to follow me. Then one night, something changed. She waved. Not a friendly wave, but a slow, deliberate motion, as if she knew I was watching and wanted me to know it. I closed my curtains, trying to shake off the unease. But then, I started hearing knocks at my door. Quiet at first, like someone testing if I was home. When I finally checked, no one was there. The next morning, I decided to investigate. I walked across the street to the abandoned building, telling myself I was being paranoid and needed to confront whatever, or whoever, this was. The place was worse up close. Broken glass, graffiti, and a stench of decay. The stairwell creaked as I climbed to the floor where I'd seen her. But the window was empty. There was no sign of anyone, no footprints, no belongings, nothing. Just an overwhelming sense of dread. As I turned to leave, I noticed something carved into the wall near the window. It was my name. I rushed back to my apartment, heart pounding. How did she know my name? Who was she? That night, I kept the curtains closed and tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of whispering. It wasn't coming from inside my apartment. It was coming from my window. I peeked through a crack in the curtains, and there she was. She wasn't in the abandoned building anymore. She was standing on the sidewalk right below my window, staring up at me. Her lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. Then she stopped, tilted her head, and smiled. I slammed the curtains shut and grabbed my phone to call the police. But before I could dial, a message popped up on the screen. It was a photo of me, taken from inside my apartment, with the caption, "You can't hide from me." By now, I was terrified. I started questioning everything. Had I left my door unlocked? Was someone else in my apartment? I spent the next day checking every lock and corner, but nothing seemed out of place. That night, I decided to leave the lights on and stay awake. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was another message. "You need to confess." Confess to what? Then I remembered something. A mistake I'd made years ago. Something I thought I'd buried. Back in college, I cheated on a test and blamed another student when I was caught. That student was expelled, and I moved on like nothing had happened. Could this woman know about that? It didn't seem possible, but the messages kept coming. Confess, or I'll make you. The following night, the knocks started again, louder this time. When I didn't answer, the whispers came back. They were inside my apartment now, circling me, accusing me. And then I saw her reflection in my living room window, standing right behind me. I spun around, but she was gone. Instead, there was a note on my coffee table that hadn't been there before. It read, "You took her future. Now, I'll take yours." That's when it hit me. The expelled student's name was Lily, a name I'd forgotten in my effort to erase the guilt. Could this woman be connected to her somehow? Or was it Lily herself seeking revenge? The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I wrote a public post online, confessing everything about what I'd done. I apologized to Lily and promised to make things right. That night, for the first time in weeks, the knocking stopped, the messages stopped, and when I looked out the window, the woman was gone. But just as I started to feel relief, I received one final message. Good, but I'll be watching. What's the lesson here? Sometimes, the things we think we've buried come back to haunt us. Our actions have consequences, even if we try to ignore them. This experience taught me that guilt doesn't just go away. It waits, lurking, until you confront it. The past has a way of catching up with you, and sometimes, the only way out is to face it head on. Don't wait until it's too late.
Don't miss out on the scares. Go subscribe to the channel for terrifying stories, legend breakdowns, and more. Turn on notifications and experience horror like never before.